Hi, it's Meredith, and today I am starting a new vlog, and that is going to be reading the books I got for Christmas because I don't want these books to just sit on my shelves. People spent their money on these. I want to make sure I actually read them, so I'm not really sure if I'm actually going to be able to get to all of them, but I'm going to try my darn hardest. Some people got me 2 books, so I will just pick one of the books that they got me. Now, some of these I will keep aside for other vlogs as well, so there are a few that will fit some other themed reading vlogs that I should get to this year. So I have got a haul up where I'll go into all of these books in depth, so you can go watch that haul, see what the books are. I could go through them all again now, but I feel like this vlog's already going to be super long, so skip to that video if you want to see what all the books are. I might just go through all of the ones that I'm going to keep aside for other vlogs, just so you know that they're not going to pop up. I think I'm going to keep aside After the Carnage by Tara June Winch, because I do have another vlog I can read this for. I would like to read it for this vlog, but I think I will keep that aside and read the other book Tracy got me instead. I don't think I'm going to read Birthday Girl, because this would be a reread, and I do want to take my time with this reread. I might fully annotate or just tab and then annotate again in the future, but I do want to take a little bit more time with this book because again it is a reread. Then The Wicker King, I do have a vlog planned for this book, so I won't be reading it in this vlog, but it will get read, don't worry. I do have these 2 books that one of my sisters got me, so she got me 2 books, so I don't know which one I'm going to read. I'll probably just only get to one unless for some reason I absolutely smash this vlog and I have time to read both, but I highly doubt it. So I'm not sure which I'm gonna read. I feel like I could save this one for October and do another like spooky thriller reading vlog, and I could read this for that because I'm not really sure what I'll get this in a vlog for, but at the same time I really want to read this, so we'll just see. So not sure what's going to happen with those ones. I'm not going to read Literary Cats because I like participating in the Cat Lady readathon, so I will keep this for one of those rounds, so this will not be in this vlog. And the last one that I won't be picking up is Fruits Basket because, well, it's volume 2, and I will be doing a reread of this eventually. I've read this like a million times. Like when I say reread, I feel like people think this is my second time reading it. No, I've read it like a million times, so at this point it doesn't really matter because I've read it so many times, but I haven't reread it in like 2 to 3 years or something, so it's been a little while. The books that I have left, I may as well just hold them up, are these. If you can see them, I'm failing at this so bad. Ugh. These. And again, I don't know if I'll get to both of these. So how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So like 7 books in 3 weeks is a lot. So I have actually started reading already because I'm a piece of shit. And I never ever film the opening clips to vlogs before I start reading for them because that's just who I am as a person, which if you couldn't tell is a failure. And again, a piece of shit. So I have started reading The Marriage Portrait. So Liam's dad got me this, and Liam's dad doesn't really know the kind of books that I read. He actually just asked someone at the bookstore to recommend a book, and they recommended this, and this isn't really the sort of thing that I would normally read. I feel like I'm really up close. Is this too up close? That's a bit better. So this is by the author who wrote Hamnet, which isn't really a book I'm interested in either. This is just, to me, a historical fiction, and I think the reason that I can really tell the difference is this is really similar to Burial Rites, which, if you don't know, that is based on a historical event that happened. It's based on a woman, and she was the last woman to be hanged in Iceland. And it's a reimagining in a way of her story, bringing her story to light. And it is beautiful, it is lush, it is so well written. It's one of my favorite books ever. I love that book. I'm a hoe for that book. And this is similar. It is a story about a woman in the 1500s who was from this like royal family, and she was put into an arranged marriage when she was really young, and she died like a year later. Most historians believe she had like, I can't think of what it was, but like some illness that we now have a title for, but back then they didn't. But a lot of people also believe, and it was rumored at the time, that her husband killed her. And so this is her story. And you can look her up. There's not a lot of information on her. But yeah, so this is like an account of this woman's life and death. And I just think the standard is just not to Burial Rites. And I think it's a little bit obvious just because I have read Burial Rites. And I feel like this is a similar thing, author tackling a similar thing. And I'm not a huge like historical fiction reader. Like the start was very, oh, she's different from other girls, and it was just very like telling me this, and it was really over the top. Like this is good writing, but it's not incredible. It's not the writing is like a huge part of the story. It's more the writing is just telling it. And I just don't care. Like, I'm really bored because it doesn't have, again, that striking writing style to me, a huge element of the story. So it's just kind of the story and I really don't give a shit and I feel really bad about it. I just don't care. I feel like nothing's happening. And yeah, the start was like obnoxious. It has gotten better. She's now married where I'm up to. I don't know. I feel like I'm just not a fan of the writing style. There's heaps of passages where it's her like being aware that her husband's going to kill her, but we don't know why. And we're slowly learning. So it's just like, I don't know, the transitions are just a bit awkward because I'm like, okay, we've got another chapter about her knowing her husband's gonna kill her, but like we still don't really know why. So it's just like this kind of feels pointless, which I feel like is a little bit hypocritical because I really like the Bone Witch series, which does a similar thing where we're going back and forth from the past to the future and like we don't really know what's happened, but we know something bad's happened. But that is written in a way where it's like entertaining, whereas in this I'm just like I feel like we're just rehashing the same shit over and over and over and over. And that is something I've noticed in this. It's very repetitive. Like, we're rehashing the same things that we've already rehashed, and I didn't care the first time, so of course, like 57th time, I'm not gonna care. Also, she is very young. I mean, back in that day, obviously their standards for what age people could have sex and their opinions on consent were very different to now. But being a modern reader, I don't like reading about like I think he's in his like late 20s-year-old having sex with a like 16-year-old is just not really something I want to read in detail. I think you can write these kind of books and have stuff like that happen and just glimpse or over it, because that is a very horrific thing. I don't think you need to go into, you know, graphic detail to depict that it is a horrific thing, right? But she's going into kind of detail and she's writing it really strangely, and I just don't want to read about it. Like, I know that that would have happened to that woman and it's really sad, but I feel like her intentions get a little bit murky. We don't really need to. I don't know why you're going into that much detail. Like, not necessarily glimpse over it, because I do know she's wanting us to hear this woman's story that wasn't heard. I think you can do it with a little bit more class and a little bit more respect and a little bit more grace than how she's written it. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Let's talk about this. I have been putting off filming this clip for like 4 days. I really didn't like this, and I feel really terrible. I'm like having a crisis to Liam. I'm like, if your dad asks if I read it, what do I say? Do I just say I didn't? And if I say I did, do I lie? Do I say I liked it? Or do I be a bitch and tell him I didn't like the book he brought me? Like, I am having a crisis over this. I've never been so anxious about a fucking book before. Oh my god. I feel like even talking about this in this video makes me seem like a spoiled, ungrateful piece of shit, which I probably am. But I also like to be honest with you guys and talk about the books that I read. So I'm going to film a clip now, but I cannot promise you that this clip will be entered into the video. Ugh. I haven't read many books that are inspired by a person that actually existed. This is pretty new to me. I've read Burial Rites, which was fucking fantastic. And I don't know if there's like this, you know how in so many things there's like this silent rule that nobody talks about but everyone knows. So when you like jump into something, you're really naive and you don't know what those silent rules are, right? So I don't know if there's a silent rule that you're allowed to not be accurate with how you're telling this person's story. Like, you can just say I'm inspired by this and I'm going wherever I want. I'm not going to fully regard every single historical fact. I'm gonna turn this into my own interpretation. Like, I don't know if that's accepted by people that read these kind of books, and this isn't my genre. I'm probably not gonna read many in my life, so I'm not like too concerned. But to me, it feels disrespectful because this person existed and you're shedding light to their life. There are just several things in this I haven't even done that much research, but they just don't add up. And I think there was like a thing at the end where she was talking about. So it's like, she was the inspiration for this novel. I have tried to use what little is known about her short life, but I made a few alterations in the name of fiction. And like, she talks about a few of them, and some of them are more just like, it wouldn't transition well into a text. Like, it would be clunky, and I understand that. And like, I don't really know how to talk about any of these changes without spoiling it. So I'm not going to, but I feel like it's disrespectful, and you're not telling that person's story. Yeah, you're not telling their story. You're just taking their life to make up your own story. And that doesn't sit well with me. But again, I don't know if that's like a silent rule that it's okay and I'm just being a pompous dickhead. I really don't know, because again, this isn't my genre, and I'm not too concerned because really I'm probably not going to read a lot of these, and I might even steer clear from them from now on if I hear that there are alterations made in the name of fiction. Fuck, I hate that. There were just other things. What even were the other things that I hated about this? There was just a lot. I think that it was just very detached and a lot of telling, and I just didn't feel immersed in the story. I feel like the way this is written just feels weird with what I feel like the author's intentions probably were, because at the end of the day, not every genre is for everyone, and that is fine. And I'm going to never think about this ever again. So I have started The Lost Apothecary, but I think I'm just going to update the books as I finish them. Otherwise the vlog would be just way too long. Nobody wants to stare at my face for that long. But so far so good. So that's a plus. I'm not going to hate like every book everyone brought me this year. Yes, I am a bit of a tomato and I look sweaty and gross. And yes, I'm wearing a Christmas shirt in the middle of January. Mind your own business. I'm so close. I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna be a pain. I have read and finished What We Fed to the Manticore. I did realize that I'd been saying what we feed to the Manticore, but it's what we fed to the Manticore. So I'm really sorry that that was like probably really annoying for all of you watching it, seeing that it literally says fed. So this was fucking incredible. 5 stars. And I just have a lot of feelings about this collection. It was like watching Our Planet, which is a documentary by David Attenborough. So if you've watched that, this has similar vibes in that it's all about the ways that human beings are interfering with animals, and in a negative way. It's all about, yeah, global warming, animal conservation, animal rights, what is happening in the wild to animals. And it's frustrating and it's a depressing read, and I wouldn't say this was the most uplifting read, but it was fucking beautiful. It was so well written. I think that every story had a clear enough message without it being like beating you over the head, because I find sometimes, especially in like short stories where it is kind of repetitive in nature a little bit, it can be a little bit too on the nose. But this was really good. There were actually a few in here that I was a little bit confused by as well, just with the magical realism elements that I was probably a little bit too dumb to fully understand. But it does mean a reread will definitely be in order to help me maybe understand those short stories a little bit better. But yeah, I think these are brilliant. Every story is entertaining, you know, covers something so fucking important, is beautiful, has brilliant writing. I think that that can be hard to pull off because normally short story collections, there's a few that aren't as good, but this was fucking brilliant. So I might just talk through my favorites. I think I had like 5, yeah, so there were 5 favorites. There is a sources section and it has links to research and what inspired all of these stories. So they're actually all inspired by like real events, which makes it even more harrowing. So it's kind of like she took these real life events and things that are occurring and gave them a like magical realism spin, which was really fun. And they're all kind of different as well, because in some, like, animals and humans can communicate, and then in others they can't, but they're all in the perspective of animals. Did I say that? Oh my god, I haven't even said what this is about. Yeah, it's just a short story collection in the perspective of animals. Not really that profound, but I completely forgot to say that. It's like literally BookTube 101 and I failed, so love that. The first one was The Good Donkey, which is such a good start to this collection. It really went off with a bang. It's based on this zoo in Gaza, and the story is in the perspective of a donkey that was painted to look like a zebra, about his relationship with the guy running it and how the guy running it is kind of dodgy, but he also has like good intentions, so it's a little bit like icky and sad, and he wants to build this zoo to make people happy, you know, during these awful times. And I would recommend reading this before you read what happened with the zoo because it's really creepy. So I think it's better to read it and experience it, but yikes. And then What We Fed to the Manticore was another favorite. This one was definitely pretty heavy on the magical realism. It's about tigers who are struggling to find food, and this manticore just waltzes in like, sup, we're gonna eat some humans. And the tigers are like, no, we're not gonna eat the humans. And they are starving and dying because they are not eating what is like their only resource left. But the manticore's like, fuck it, and it's just eating all the humans. And then we have Someone Must Watch Over the Dead, which is a contender for my favorite of the collection. I think it might be my second favorite, but sometimes I don't know. It was so good. So it's about vultures and how vultures are actually doing a job when they eat carcasses. So they are, through eating the carcasses, actually helping that creature pass on to the next life. So it's this big process. It talks about the responsibilities of that and how they are gorging because there are just so many animals dying that they can't keep up. They can't eat all of the carcasses because there's too many. Just filming, I'll be out soon. And then the one that I think is my favorite, but again, it's tossing up between those two, is The Open Ocean is an Endless Desert. And this is about whales, and it's kind of about obviously the way that they communicate, which to us kind of sounds like singing. So it's kind of about how they sing to communicate, and the ways that ships and human mechanics on the water and in the water are impacting their ability to communicate, and how they're getting lost and unable to actually speak, and the way that the beautiful music is being interrupted because of our interference. And it was just really pretty. And then the final short story in the collection is my last favorite, which is Let Your Body Meet the Ground, which is about a pigeon who gets injured and they are helping heal the pigeon. A guy that like volunteers to help out ends up taking the pigeon out with him, and it's kind of the ramifications of that. And I really liked how that one really showcased how every single animal life is important, and it made me feel really fucking bad about eating meat. It was just really beautiful, and there's a really, really moving scene in that was probably the most moving singular scene in this collection. But yeah, this collection is tough. It doesn't shy away from the atrocities that are happening to animals, but if you are an animal lover and you think you can stomach it, it's amazing. And I wouldn't say it's the most depressing animal story out there, but it's the reality. And I think that this is such an important book, and I think that yes, it is sad, but it's important, and if you feel like you can stomach it and it's not going to be triggering, I would really highly recommend picking this up because it is so, again, important. Yeah, kind of ripped my heart out a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. I'm still thinking about this, and I wouldn't say thoughts are pleasant, so that's not necessarily good.
But I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before I knew.
I need to stop getting sunburned. I'm so careful with the sun, but I'll just be outside talking to someone for like 5-10 minutes and this happens. I hate the Tasmanian sun. It is just brutal. So yes, this week has been very busy, very stressful, very exciting, very crazy, and it's made it really hard for me to read because my mind is completely on that. So I wouldn't really say I'm in a reading slump because I do want to read and I'm enjoying reading still. My mind keeps wandering because I'm so excited about these other things. And it didn't help that I was reading Memories of the Black Rose Cat. And I'm not saying that because this was bad. I really enjoyed this, but it was very dense and had a lot of like font on the pages, and it was a very slow read that required so much of my brain. And when my brain was like trying to go off and think about other things, it made it really actually difficult for me to read this because I struggled to focus and I had to keep going back and reading the same things. And there was so much to take in that I feel like it just took me a million years to read this. So I am not going to get as much read for this vlog as I was hoping, which I'm so sorry to people that brought me books and I'm not getting to them. I tried really hard, but I'm a bit all over the show. But I'm still hoping to read 2 more and I'll get into that in a second. Let's talk about this. So this is a generational story about this Chinese Thai family. We go to like the future and this person who we are wondering how they are a descendant. I suppose it's kind of like this mystery of who is this person, how are they sort of connected to the people we're learning about. So it's kind of them learning their history. And it also just goes into a bunch of other side characters that are completely irrelevant. So if you hate that kind of thing, you probably won't like this. The attention to detail in this is quite a lot when it comes to characters. So there'll be this random character that has no impact on the actual story, but we learn about them. And I found it really interesting, so it didn't actually worry me at all. This wasn't as magical realism heavy as the book I read by this author last year. I'm going to say this year, but we're now in the new year. It had a little bit of that in the like future timeline, I suppose. So this is not as magical realism heavy as the other book, but I still think that it's in there enough to give you that little tease. So I feel like a lot of what this tale is it's kind of the diaspora that this family are facing, the ways that the climate they're living in has impacted their lives. But it's also covering a lot I wouldn't even say it's covering this character a lot, but it's covering a lot the way that this character has impacted the family as well. And I think that that's a lot more in your face than some of these other things that are sort of more in the background. I feel like really in your face is what happens because one of the children is adopted. So they did adopt a son and then they had their own kids. And so it really focuses on the way that the siblings have a relationship with that son, the way the parents have a relationship with that son, and the way that the son feels about himself and his life and the way that he is treated because he is the only adopted kid in this family. And that was definitely interesting and I was really emotive for that character. I feel like a lot of this, because it was so dense and I guess factually in what these characters were going through, it wasn't the most emotive story, but I feel like I had so many emotions for this character, even though again it doesn't really like actually focus that much on him. It focuses on everyone, but again in a way it is focusing on the way that this has impacted the family. But again, there's all these other elements. So yeah, there's a lot of like not great people in this book. There's a lot of bad acts and it's sort of navigating why these people are doing the things that they do, and definitely is confusing because it's not linear. So it's not like we follow this person and then we move on to the next. It's all over the place and we jump back in the past and then the future, and it's all over the place. It's not a linear story, and so it is very confusing. And I think maybe it could have been more effective if it wasn't, but I kind of enjoyed how it was all over the place, even though it was like a little bit confusing and required so much brain power that maybe that's why again there wasn't as much of an emotive response. So I did prefer this one, and I think I'm tossing up whether to give this a 4 or a 3.5. I think when I think about the two, I'm going to put this down to a 3.5 just because there was some stuff with the way the female characters were written, even though this is written by a woman. I don't know, and I know it's that time period, but some of it was just a bit, I don't know, but I feel like it focused a lot more on the sons, and while they all definitely had struggles and there was almost like this curse, which I guess was kind of a magical realism thing going on with this family, I feel like it just focused so much more on the sons. This like was kind of repetitive. I don't know if it was an intentional thing or not, because there was this like curse element to this story where, I won't spoil it, but there is kind of this reoccurring thing that is happening in this family that we're exploring. And I just felt like the way that played out was always almost the exact same thing happening. And I kind of just felt like it was too repetitive. And I don't know if the author was trying to portray something with that. Like they all kept going down the same fate. But I think they could have gone down the same fate that the curse was without the exact same thing happening to all of them, because it didn't really make for a fun reading experience when it was the same thing rehashed. And there is a quality to this author's writing that was prevalent in both, even though I think these were quite differently written overall. They're very dramatic. Like the way people behave and act and feel is very over the top. It's like a very much a drama TV show. It's very, very dramatic. And I love it. I think it works with the style. I don't really know what it is, But in a book with like a basic normal writing style, I would just be rolling my eyes like, this is so over the top. But because of the way this is written, it just works. It's like, I guess it's like the magical realism, the murky kind of element to it, the way that their actions are described make it sound kind of like poetic and beautiful, that they're acting this like over the top. This is definitely an author that I'm going to keep reading books from, because they've both been really interesting experiences that I'm left thinking about. Hang on, let me go get the other books I've started. What the fuck am I doing? Ugh. Where are these books? How have I lost these books? It's not that hard. Come on. It's a book. I found one of them. I'm going to try and finish these 2 books today. I'm very much towards the end. I've been slowly working on these 2. I've got the audiobooks that I'm reading along to, so it's definitely doable. Okay, I have finished The Lost Apothecary and having some mixed feelings. I think there are some things that this book did really well, and then I think there are some things that it did really bad. So it's definitely a difficult book for me to like rate and review. So I will settle on a 3 stars, I think. So this is a historical fiction and it is a dual timeline. There is a present day timeline and then there's another timeline. Let me just double check when it's set, because I'm stupid and I can't remember. Late 18th century London. And in that timeline, it is following this apothecary who makes poisons for women to purchase to kill men. So she doesn't allow them to buy poisons to harm other women. And then we also get a perspective in that timeline from a girl who ends up having to go and purchase poison from the woman that she works for. And so it's about them and their relationship. And then in the present, we have this woman who has found out that her husband has cheated on her. And so she is going on this trip that was meant to be like an anniversary trip for them. And so she goes on her own and she finds a bottle, and the bottle ends up being one of the bottles from this apothecary. And so it's kind of her uncovering, you know, where this bottle came from. It sounds good at first, but then in hindsight, it's a bit odd because you're reading this storyline in the present that's like a mystery, but it's not, because we know who the person is. So she's discovering who the person is while we're actually reading what the reality is. And I find that a weird idea, because it's like you're writing a mystery, but it's not a mystery to us. Like the mystery is what happened in the end to her. But I find it weird that we're uncovering who she is with the main character like this is some mystery, when it's like we actually know. So we don't really need the present. Like at points it felt weird. I don't know. But I think it was this like uplifting story in a way that the modern day woman found. You know, the bottle, and you know, a lot of it was women wanting to kill their cheating husbands, and so she'd be cheated on. So it was this kind of connection between them. But it's very unbelievable, because as if she would, like, the fact that she found that, it's like when she was on the journey away, like it's a bit like lame in a way, and I feel like the connection was just too on the nose, like too obvious. It was like, I feel like it could have been a little bit more subtle, but it was so obvious what the connection and intention of that connection was, that it was just a bit lame. So I do think the historical timeline story was better, but I don't think we needed a perspective from both those characters. I think while I was reading it, I thought Eliza's was unnecessary, but when I got near the end, I think maybe only Eliza's was necessary. I don't think we needed both. It bogged the story down, because while their storyline was the better of the two, it also was kind of boring because not a lot was happening. And I feel like for something like that, you would think there would be more high stakes. And I feel like there weren't a lot of like ebbs and flows in the story. It was just kind of the story and then shit hits the fan at the end. And I do like the writing. I think the writing flows really well. I think the characterization was good for the child and the modern day woman. But I also thought their characterization wasn't very good of the woman that was the apothecary, because it was written like she wasn't doing as big of a thing as she was. Like, it's just like, man. Which I like. Go her. That's awesome. You know, I enjoy reading that. But the everyday person isn't just like, I'm going to sell poisons to kill cheating men. Like, we would love to kill cheating men, right? But would we actually do it? You know, the ordinary person doesn't actually do it, right? So she just does it, and I feel like, I don't know, we don't explore that very much. Like, she just wrote it as if that's what women would do. Like, she's so badass, and it's like, there's also got to be a lot of fucked up shit happening there, right? Because she's like murdering people. But I believe this is a debut, so honestly, it was a tough challenge, and it could have been worse. Could have been much better, but it could have been much worse. It's very mediocre. I don't think I'm going to really think about it a lot, but there were elements that I enjoyed. I really enjoyed the ending, and I like what she was trying to do. I appreciate that, and I actually think this could make a really good movie, because I think they could do it in a way that is a little bit more, I guess, subtle. I'm looking over there, and we have a stack of boxes, and Tilly is sitting right on top. And I swear to God, if she and those boxes topple, she's trying to get up on the cupboard. Down! You're not getting up there. Come on. Down. Yeah, you run. So scary. I see you there peering at me behind the door. I have finished Raybearer. So this is a YA fantasy, and come on. No. Not in there. Come on. You sit with Mummy. Do you want to sit here while I do the reading update? She's not happy. What was I even up to? I don't think I'd said much at all. It's about a girl who grows up very isolated and lonely. She's raised by this woman that's called the Lady, and she kind of thinks of her as her mother, and she doesn't really have a lot of affection in her life or socialization. She's just a very lonely, neglected person. She's sent to like the court, and she's taking part in this group of like 12 people that are all very close and very much love was he the prince? A prince? Yeah. It's the Crown Prince's Council of 11. Oh, so he's part of the 12. And yeah, they have this really strong bond and friendship, but she has actually been sent there to kill him, and she doesn't have a choice because she's actually bound to the Lady, and so she actually has no choice. So when she is told that she has to kill him when he trusts her, she will do it because she has been commanded and she has no choice. So even though she has come to really care about him and love him, she does kind of get in this position where she will have to kill him, and it's kind of about that. It plays a lot with memories and lots of different abilities, and it's this huge expansive world, and it was actually quite complex for a YA. Like, I was pretty confused reading this. It's probably because I spent some of it only listening to audiobook because I wanted to get this book done for this vlog, so I listened to some of it while driving, and I just think I really needed to sit down and read it. So I really enjoyed this. I would definitely give it a reread before I read the sequel, and actually like sit and read it when I do have time. Very heavy on the world building. There's a lot going on. There's different powers. There's lots of different characters. There's so many different elements to this world, the politics, the land, and everything. So it is very dense and heavy in that regard. So definitely go in knowing that this isn't necessarily an easy read, because it is YA. I definitely felt like this was quite high level, and I don't even know if I would have liked this very much as a teen. It does feel very adult, even though they're teen characters. Just complex, and I think maybe I'm underestimating teens, but all I cared about was Dick and tits when I was young, so, you know. But yeah, it's such an interesting story. It spans many years. There's so much character development. The main character is just someone that you instantly feel for, because I feel like it's really hard to not feel for her. I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more time with her at the beginning to see what her life really was like before this adventure started. But I think that you still kind of got enough of it to get the picture. And I think even though this does span so many years, and we do kind of gloss over a lot, obviously, because it is such an intense world, I think that the author did a really good job of just focusing in on certain points in this person's life that were significant enough and written in a way where we could fill in the blanks of what we missed. Like, it was enough to say, okay, I actually get a feel for what has happened. I feel immersed. I don't feel like I'm missing massive gaps, which is quite incredible, because that would have been really difficult to pull off, and I think she did it really well. Pacing and structure, I don't really feel like it was impacted by it either. I think it flowed really well. I was always intrigued. And I, again, really loved the main character. I think she's a very interesting character, and through her we explore so much. Like, when you love someone that is bad for you, and you love someone that is such a significant part in your life, and you realize that they've actually done you really bad, and how do you cope with that. And it also talks about learning to think for herself, and learning to choose what she wants, and have love, and have friends, and have agency and autonomy over herself, which I think is really important. So it's definitely got a lot of like great topics for teens. Now, when I went into this, I thought it was really focusing in mostly on her, which it was, but I also thought it was kind of covering the friendship between her and the prince a lot. But I think I must have misunderstood that, because I think people were more just saying there isn't a romance there. She actually has a romance with a different character. And I kind of wish there wasn't the romance and we just had friendship plot lines. I think that there were just so many scenes that were focusing in on this romance that I just don't really feel like brought anything. It wasn't like a compelling romance. There wasn't really a lot of chemistry. It wasn't really bringing anything to the story for me. And I think this had so many other compelling elements that it didn't really need it, or it could have been something that was a slow burn into the second book. I just don't really feel like it was doing much the way it was written in this. And yeah, I think I would have liked to focus more on her friendships, because they were really lovely. Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. It's really only brought down by the fact that I cannot say whether it's too complicated and not written clear enough, or that was the audiobook, so I'm sort of stagnant on that. But also I just didn't really like the romance a whole bunch, so this just doesn't have the full like 5-star, but it is very good. And I do agree that this is a top-notch YA book that's coming out at the moment, because again, a lot of them kind of feel the same, and I think this benefits from that storyline of taking place over a long period of time. I think that that's really interesting. So thank you everyone that gave me a book for Christmas. I really, really appreciate it. So let me know in the comments what books you got for Christmas. Have you read any of them? What are you excited to pick up that you got? I would absolutely love to know. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really hope that you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in another video very soon. But until then, I'm gonna piss off. Oh god. Bye.